Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am doing a gel plate printing session with all reds and pinks. And the reason I'm doing this is because I am doing a color challenge that I've created for myself, and I'm working my way through the rainbow. So far, I have done one video with all green paints. I will link that video below in case you want to check it out as well. So getting started here, I am just gathering all of the paints so that you can see all of the brands and the different colors that I have on my table. So all of these are the paints that you will see me use in this entire video. And that way, if you're at a point where you want to know maybe what a certain color is, you can come back or take screenshots here to see the exact colors. I am also grabbing a couple Brayers to get started. I'm grabbing a 4-inch speedball and then a smaller 2.2 that I got in a 2-pack on Amazon, which is a great time to remind you that all the supplies are listed below, or you can download my gel plate supply PDF, which is also in the description. I do like to tape down the pieces of paper that are underneath my gel plate. Just makes things easier and it doesn't shift all around while I'm working. So typically in my gel plate videos where I'm doing like a whole painting session, I talk my way through and I tell you certain things maybe that I was thinking or certain techniques that I used. And so I talk through the video. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section. I love chatting with you all. So at the beginning here, I'm typically just putting down like a basic layer of colors, and I am using a variety of different papers. I have a drawing paper that I like. I cut that into fourths. There's some graph paper there that you've already seen. And then I'm also using deli paper in this session. That there is a jar of Nova color paints, and so I use a palette knife to apply the paint onto the gel plate and then move it around with my brayer. In this particular spot here, I'm trying to pick off, there were like maybe a couple little spots of dried paint or something and they were stuck. So, you know, it's always a process. Sometimes when you see like little imperfections, it might be something stuck on your gel plate. These end up kind of being like background colors to what later I will add like more textures and techniques on top of them. So the very beginning here isn't super exciting, but I'm about to dive into some different techniques. We talked about how I use the Nova color paints and a palette knife. So here I'm applying it, but instead of rolling it out, I leave these little like dashes of paint and I just go ahead and apply that directly onto the graph paper. So I was able to get one pull with a lot of the color, and then doing the second pull because there's still a lot of paint left. And actually, there ends up being a third pull. I do like to find different ways to move the paint around, not always use the brayer. This is one of my favorite pieces of cardboard to use. It is a piece from a coin box from a bank. I love the circles that it makes. I do also have a full video about free textures that you can use, and that is mentioned in there. I will link that video for you below as well. It's been a really popular video. There's a lot of different ideas there, and people are taking away lots of great ideas for different fun and free textures for your gel plate. I did forget to mention I will also be using white. So I'm using the color for my color challenge plus white. So there you can see there's like the original layer and then some from the coin box, the circles, and then the little like dashes of paint from the palette knife application. Also, you can see I bounce around with 2 gel plates. I often like to do that because if I have leftover paint on a brayer or things I want to like carry over and like not waste, then I can bounce back and forth between the two gel plates. This is an 8x10 on the left and a 6x6 on the right. And I've thought about doing like setting it up differently and doing like two 8x10s, but this has been really working well for me lately, having the two different sizes. And then that way too, if I have paper that I need to cut down and I want to put smaller papers, I can go on the smaller gel plate and things like that. And here's another cool cardboard piece that I found in some packaging. It's like it had like a perforated line across, so when I tore them apart, it left this cool texture that created these little dots or lines. And then I like to experiment with the different ways that I pull or press with pieces of cardboard like that. So on the left, I was kind of like pulling like really quickly, and then on the right, I was kind of dragging the cardboard down and to make the marks a little bit longer. So here's all of those layers coming together with the different circles from the cardboard and little dots from the white piece of cardboard. And I love how they all just layer together and like little pieces show through. And then there's a little bit left over on the gel plate, which comes in handy later. Here I'm just joking around and playing because my nails actually match the project. I had little hearts on my nails. I personally love when there's paint like left over from the other pulls because then you get exciting texture showing through. And then this piece of cardboard, I used the back, which left some really interesting shapes. And then I flipped it over, and because I've torn some of the cardboard away, there's like this little piece of like corrugated cardboard peeking through, and that creates some really interesting shapes as well. So again, with whatever pieces you have, that if you're like pulling things from the trash or recycle bin, don't be afraid to like tear them up, see what's inside, use them in different ways. I do also use stencils, and a lot of the stencils I have are from Stencil Girl. I especially think it's fun to mix like the really precise designs of a stencil and then something totally different like the corrugated cardboard. I think it's fun to mix so the different patterns can be together in like one pull. And of course there is a challenge here too because I'm using all reds and pinks. So I'm going this whole monochromatic collage paper session means I have to really be thinking about different values so that there's enough contrast when I do a pull. That way you can still see all the different textures. So here's what I meant when there's like that combination of stencil and then like cardboard and the way they mix together. I really enjoy. And I'm not positive about what I'm going to do with all of my color challenge papers. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to say what they are. Haha. So I believe this is called like a honeycomb shape. It's basically like a more earth-friendly bubble wrap. It's like a paper, like a crinkle paper instead of like plastic bubble wrap. And when you open up that shape, it's like a honeycomb shape. And I'm pulling it down and letting that catch on the paint. And it's creating a really cool texture. Again, found that in some packing material. I do occasionally use this little craft dryer. I have that linked in my supplies as well. I just try to keep it moving really quickly because technically you're not really supposed to apply heat to the gel plate. So here's the first Posca product I'm using in this video. I believe it's called a mopper, and it reminds me of like a bingo dauber. You like has like that circle top, and a lot of paint comes out. So I will warn you, there's a lot of paint that comes out. So I have to let those dry, and that's part of the reason I use that envelope to like press down and pick up some of the like pools of paint. And then I'm going to let that hang out and dry and work on the gel plate next to it, which is another reason I like being able to like teeter-totter between two gel plates, because when something is drying on one, I can do something on the other, because I can be like a little bit impatient. Like if I actually get the time to sit and work in a paint session, I don't want to have to keep stopping to wait for things to dry on my gel plate. So I like having multiple gel plates going during the same session. There you see me kind of like swirling the paint around. There's sometimes you'll notice that like if two paint colors aren't mixing together very well, if you do like a swirling motion like that rather than a back and forth, it can sometimes work a little bit better for you. And that there is the deli paper. And at the end of the video, I do a flip through and I show you all of the finished papers, which I like because then you can see all the different designs after they're all dry, and I flatten out the papers. So that's nice to see at the end. So make sure you stick around for that. So there again with that mopper brush, there's still a lot of paint left because it wasn't fully dry, and if it had fully dried, I would have had to put a layer of wet paint on top. But it was still wet, and I'm just taking off like a layer of that wet paint. So similar thing here. This is a different Posca marker, different shape, and it's creating like little rectangles. So now the one on the right is going to need to start drying, and the one on the left I can continue working with because those dots had dried. And because I had lifted part of that paint up, it helped it dry faster. This is another stencil girl, excuse me. This is another stencil girl stencil. That was acrylic ink that I was trying there, and it really doesn't stick around on the plate that much. It just kind of pulls away. But I wanted to try it because I'd gathered around all the different reds and pinks, and so I felt like it was worth a shot. The deli paper was able to kind of soak it up, so that was the good thing about the deli paper. And so there, again, I'm trying to pull up some of the puddles of paint from the Posca marker so that that side can start drying a little bit faster. And then I still have so much paint on the paper, I transferred it over to the gel plate on the left, because it's kind of like just dealing with those little puddles of paint and moving them around. I do also like that like those two right there were really lighter, like more lighter pinks. And then like here's an example where I'm going much darker. So it is fun to see all of the different colors. And a lot of these are honestly colors I may not reach for a lot. So it's fun to see. This is like the plastic part from like an egg carton. I didn't feel like it was very successful, so I went and grabbed my bank coin box again. And you can see I'm kind of pushing in different spots. The pressure that I'm pushing with isn't always the same. Like I'm not always laying down the flat rectangle and pushing the same around the entire rectangle. Sometimes I'll push harder in some areas so that it pulls paint up in different spots, and that way it's like different textures. I'm not trying to make it like perfect and consistent. I'm trying to keep it like different and more interesting. So this time with the Posca marker, I'm doing stripes, which was really fun to experiment with. Before I had done like more of that like rectangle shape from the tip of the marker. So now I'm drawing stripes. And this pole I really enjoy, but it's kind of hard to see all the different colors on camera. There's like some really cool like reds and pinks going on, but sometimes the contrast is hard to see on camera, but it looks really cool in person. Same with that one too. It's like in real life you can see the subtlety, like the differences in the values and the colors. It's kind of harder to see that one on camera. So over there on the left I had the stripes, and then I did white paint on top. And since it was pretty dry, it pulled up the stripes. But there's like a little hint left. I think I just got like too much paint over there. Sometimes the rule of thumb you can do like is where you can almost see through the layer of white, where there's just like a little hint peeking through, and sometimes that's the best amount of paint when you're trying to peel up the dried paint off your gel plate. So feel free to experiment with that. So I believe that was the acrylic ink again, but I mixed it with some fluid acrylics, the fluorescent pink. And I'm letting that deli paper soak it up. And then I don't know if things stopped filming or something happened there, but I had to skip. So now it's like cleaner, and I'm doing the white stripes with the Posca marker. Another fun pull with lots of different textures. And then this is the first round of peeling up some of the white stripes, and they're really imperfect and like textural. I really like it. There's the second pull of white stripes. And then this will be the third one and the final one. So at the end of the video, when I do the like look through of all the finished papers, you'll be able to see all different three and how the lines are a little bit different on each one. I thought this one looked really cool. It's almost like they still look like wet or splattery because the way that the paint and the background was as well. So actually, you were still able to see a little bit like a hint of the stripes there, but they weren't white anymore. Interesting. Here's some more packing material. It creates almost like a little grid shape. And here I'm just using the deli paper to like pull up parts, almost like how I use the cardboard. So I wanted to add a little bit of something to that piece of paper, and I went ahead and just used the Posca marker directly on the paper. So this is one of my favorite experimentations in the entire video. I did these little like XOXO drawings, and every once in a while it's like the marker is not flowing properly. It's like a little bit dry. So that's why I'm drawing on that white paper to like kind of bring the marker back to life. Like if you've ever written with a paint pen, you kind of know what I mean. It kind of like stops, the paint kind of stops flowing, and you kind of have to like wake it back up. So I knew over on the left that I needed more like white space or clear, like not as much paint. So that's why I did one more pull before I did the XO, and I kind of wish I had done even more, like especially in the corners, there's still a bit of red paint left. I wish I had kind of cleaned that up a little bit more, even though these do turn out really cool. But hey, that's why we experiment, right? So this one, it's like pretty hard to see the XOXO because there was already a lot of paint on the gel plate. But this one comes out a lot better. Like you can see um, there's more of that white space. So cute. And you can still see some of the little like grid, like textural pieces from that packing paper. All right, we've made it to the end, and here we are looking through all of the papers. So at the beginning here, I'm starting with all of the deli paper pieces. And I put that white foam board behind because sometimes it's easier to see the colors, especially on the deli paper, with something white behind it. I always love like flipping through and seeing these because you can see like little hints of the different things you did and the little textures, and you can remember back like what part that was or what colors and texture tools you were using. The other thing I did do before I did this flip through was I laid these, after they were all dry, I laid them in a pack together and I put some heavy like books on top of them. So it's helped them like really flatten out. Like even there, it's just like the crinkly paper affects the stripes, and I love all of that. All those little details add interest. So even just with like one color family, like all of these different things we created, I think is pretty cool. And then when I'm done with this project, I'll have like a different pile of every color, which I'm really excited about. This one I think is more just like brayer roll off. I can't remember. It looks like brayer marks. And these are on graph paper, so you can see the lines behind them, which I think is fun, that the little lines from the graph paper like kind of peek through. And these are just kind of like little bonus papers, and where I was using the Posca pens and then a simple little pull. Again, it looks like brayer marks, and then we've got Posca pen marks. And then the rest are on the drawing paper. I like the drawing paper. It's, it's a little bit thicker than copy paper. I also like that it's like an actual art paper. Plus, I did get like a huge pad of that. I think I got like 2 of them actually. Somebody was selling some art supplies on Facebook Marketplace, and I got them for really cheap, so it was a good deal. And then these that have a lot of white space left, I will cut that off and probably just use the smaller pieces in another gel plate session. I just haven't cut them off yet. But I'm not going to let all that white paper go to waste. This is probably one of my favorite ones. I just really enjoyed the different shapes from the cardboard mixed with that stencil. If you have a favorite, let me know, and if you're still hanging around here at the end of the video, I really appreciate it. Gel plate printing is one of my favorite things. I just love experimenting and trying different things. So that's why sometimes I give myself these little challenges, like this color challenge. And this is probably my second favorite. I love the mix of textures there. And this is the one where I had been like swirling the paint around. And so you can almost see kind of like that swirliness of the pink. And there's little grungy bits on the edges there. That's what I'm pointing at. And the pink marks on the top there are when I was trying to pick up some of the pools of the Posca marker. So it's a very different texture because it's like kind of like a wobbly little lines that is created from that big blob of wet paint. And this is part of the one that was like that honeycomb texture from the like packing paper that's like the honeycomb shape. And then here's some more of the stripe ones. I like how all the stripe ones are so different because sometimes there was like different textures on the gel plate, sometimes it's different textures on the paper. Each time it's a little different. And that's the one you can see the mix of the like coin box circles and then the leftover paint from the beginning when I put the paint on with a palette knife and didn't use the brayer. and then that has that like packing paper texture, like the little grid pattern. And here's the last one. This one's pretty simple. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, let me know if you have a favorite. Let me know if you'll do your own color challenge. And I need to decide what color to do next. I think I might do blues. Blue sounds really fun. Red is not usually my like go-to color. As a redhead, I don't typically like wear a lot of red, but I do like pink. I like pink paint and magenta paint. Oh, I was showing a side by side of the first pull on the right and then the second pull on the left, and how that like palette knife application looked in the two different pieces. I had kind of forgotten that I did that. Anyways, thank you guys again for being here. I'm about to sign off. I'm just going to run through the colors one more time so you can see the different brands and the names of the colors. And I will see you in the next video. Happy printing!